But are there any specific things to be mindful of when writing a CV for a CFO role?
Um, yeah, so I think it whether it's kind of a CFO role, FD, I think the main things I always say to people at this point in your career, you've probably got quite a lot of experience, or more than you did as a newly qualified when your CV was, much more streamlined. And I think you need to make sure that you have a kind of simple and concise format. So everyone always asks me, how long should it be? 2 to 3 pages is ample. 1 page is far too short. 4 or 5 pages far too long. So 2 to 3 pages is what you want to be aiming for. Same font, so you don't need to have all the bolds or the underline, the different italics. You definitely don't need pictures. You don't need your date of birth. So just keep the document really simple and easy to read. Things at the top, I mean, take for granted, but it's your kind of personal details. So your name, your number, your email address. People now don't put their whole address on a CV, so you don't need to do that. You could literally just put London if you wanted to. But this is where the differentiator comes to the CFO. So I think you want to be adding a summary at the top of your CV, which will include things like the industry sector you've had, the geographical locations, the types of organisations from a size, funding stage, but also highlighting key areas of your expertise. So is it investment banking, is it M&A, is it audit? So thinking of those things that you want to kind of highlight as high level. And then you want to put a summary of your education. So at this level, you only really need to have your qualification and a degree. You don't need anything prior to that. And from an experience perspective, focus on the past 5 years of experience and streamline any earlier work experience than that. And I always say to people, particularly your last 2 roles, you want to have quite a lot of detail around the company. So for an example would be, if I make up a business, that you'd have the name of the company, and then underneath that you'd have something along the lines of VC-backed Series A B2B SaaS business that has grown from X headcount to Y headcount, that's seen a revenue growth of B to Z, like whatever it may be, whether you're comfortable giving numbers if you're able to disclose it, and if you're not, to be able to put percentages, so that people can see the growth that that journey has experienced. And if it hasn't experienced growth, then maybe you might want to highlight some other things. But founders in particular, when I talk to them, always want to know about ideally headcount growth and revenue growth, the geographical footprint that you've had exposure to, and the investors that you've dealt with, so who your network is. So if you're able to name the investors that you've, that invested in the company you're working in, it's that kind of information that you want to have underneath the name of the business. Then you want to highlight your key responsibilities and key achievements. So again, for the last 2 roles, it's amazing. I always see people put key achievements, but sometimes they miss the day-to-day, which might seem mundane and might not be that interesting. But you need to showcase that you have the breadth of the experience and that you're comfortable doing some of these things. So make sure you think about your day-to-day and make sure that that's highlighted. And then underneath that, put 2 or 3 key achievements. Don't forget your key stakeholders, because again, it shows kind of the interface, whether it's board, whether it's the investor community, so whoever you're dealing with, put that on there. Systems you might want to do, not so important, but interests, again, some people do, some people don't. The only other thing I would say, depending on where you're applying, is you may have heard of it, Boolean searching. So for instance, if you put PE on your CV, but not private equity, people that write private equity won't come up. So you might want to put PE and private equity at some point in the body of your CV so that it gets found depending on how people are searching. So recruiters or in-house talent people might be searching on your CV if you've applied for a certain role. So it's just making sure that you've got the coverage of different acronyms if you are abbreviating or not abbreviating certain words. The other thing to think about with this actually is also your LinkedIn profile. So it is amazing the amount of people that I will shortlist to jobs, and the founder will go and look at your LinkedIn profile as well. So you not only just need to be thinking about your CV, but you need to also review your LinkedIn too. And that should be more conversational. So not a copy and paste of your CV. You should really get a feel of your personality. So that I would say on that. The other thing with LinkedIn is some people have weird and wonderful job titles, which is fine for your CV because that is your job title. But for LinkedIn, I would try and standardize it. So if you do have a unique job title, whether it's closest to FD or closest to FC or VP, wherever it can get to, try to make it more, I guess, of a common title, because again, if headhunters are searching, you might get missed if you have a like divisional. Some roles are really different. So just make sure if you do have a unique title, try to standardize it from a searching capability. That's just for LinkedIn. CV, keep as your true job title. The other thing with LinkedIn that you might want to be mindful of is location. So sometimes people ask me this, but I always advise putting the location where you'd like to work. So now the world of remote working is obviously more prominent. But I think if you're based, let's say, in Hertfordshire or Surrey, but you want to work in London, put London on your profile. You don't have to put the actual location you live. Unlike your CV, add a photo to your LinkedIn so that it shows the interaction rate is much higher. And again, if people are looking at you pre-interview, they kind of buy into you and they can look at you and they feel like, there's more familiarity. So definitely add a photo to your LinkedIn profile. And the other chance with LinkedIn is there's a summary box, which is similar to the opening of your CV. So highlight the key kind of areas of your experience. But the other way you can use it is if, for example, let's say you were James early on in his career, was in a corporate, but really wanted to go into private equity or venture capital and hadn't had experience of it. You could write in that summary, a real desire to go into private equity or PE or venture capital or VC. So you've got the different wordings from a search capacity, but also you haven't got the experience, but then it will come up if people are searching, so that then they're seeing you and your name will come up for potential opportunities that maybe it wouldn't. Use it. I mean, obviously, don't say you've got the experience. Use it in a sense of saying, a desire or an interest, if you want to, around that. You could do it for specific industry sectors. I speak to a lot of people that have a real interest in green tech, for instance. So it's just kind of putting things out there that maybe you haven't done, but you have an interest in or desire in. You can include that in a summary to come up in searching. The other thing
It's
around,
interesting, Jane, you say that, because a lot of people put simulators on their CV, like the fundraising simulator or the private equity buyout simulator or the IPO listing simulator, which helps to bridge that gap in the way that you said.
yeah, because again, it's like if you haven't had the direct exposure to doing it, but you've got the understanding and you've done it theoretically, then actually, you can showcase it without having done it practically. So that'd be my thoughts on that. And the other thing, not everyone does it, but Google your name. So see what you find, because as an interviewer and a founder or whoever you might be kind of, I guess, coming across, they will probably Google you. So see what comes up and make sure that your brand represents you and that you're happy with everything you're seeing, because they will probably be doing that. So that would be my other points.